think it's because Trump basically abdicated his role to oversee the military. I think that's why it's gone up. The United States said it's dropped 2,400 bombs on Afghanistan in 2017 as of August, right? But that was up 1,337 bombs the year before. So, they've already, when you abdicate your role as overseeing the military, of course the military is going to go crazy because every bomb they drop is money to them. They get paid money to drop bombs, essentially. When the U.S. military buys weapons, the military-industrial complex gets rich.
Right.
And they can only buy weapons if they drop bombs somewhere, if they use them.
Right, right, and that's kind of what I mean in terms of it's always the same thing, but every president or every administration, because I honestly I don't think the presidents have as much say in all this as we think they do, but every administration it gets worse in terms of width or depth of the type of wars and how many wars we're actually getting into, and so that's kind of what I mean, and you may see some ebbs and ties between administrations, but what doesn't change is who's calling the shot, right? Who's calling the shot is not changing. And in terms of big oil, we can have sustainable presidents, we can have green presidents, we can have presidents who say they take on big oil, but they capitulate, right? And where does big oil get its money from? Its biggest investors, the military industrial complex. That's the whole point. So that's kind of what I mean. Like there are certain places I see that we all should have, significant common ground, right? Everyone wants to support the troops. The support the troop message from the troops is we shouldn't be in wars that have nothing to do with defense of our nation. And so that's a common ground that most people should be able to gravitate to. And until we start to highlight the things that we all have in common, the things that the vast majority of us agree on, nothing will change. And that's what I mean. So more people need to be speaking up. We can't have any more discussion and talking points going from the top down. We need more grassroots people to actually step into those places to talk about what we have in common, as opposed to what's handed down, which is usually what we should be dividing and fighting over.
Not just speaking out. People need to get actively engaged. People need to get involved in their government because the government is going to get run by somebody.
Right.
So it does matter that people actually do actively engage. But I would say that it does matter who's in the office of the presidency. Because as we've seen with Trump, it does really honor. He's surrounded himself with military men. He's poisoning himself for a military coup, to be honest, in my view. I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that Trump would not try to use the military to keep himself in the office of the presidency. I think if he got seriously challenged, I don't think he would go out quietly. I think he would attempt to do something that is quite un-American in his total un-American way. I don't think he is an American. I think he acts like a traitor. That's why I call him Traitor Trump. He does not believe in democracy. He does not believe in the rule of law. He's a bully and a criminal, and that's what he's been all of his life. And it matters that he's in office right now. As we've seen, he's going to be setting up. The story broke about his commitment to the nuclear arsenal. I mean, he is really gearing up on nuclear weapons. He wants us to spend $1.2 trillion to renovate just the nuclear arsenal. Only the nuclear arsenal, $1.2 trillion.
And that's really what we're going to see. We're going to see this escalation towards the normalizing of, using nuclear weapons, because that's actually where this is going. So if you look at the last administration, they were leading the nuclear proliferation effort by upgrading all of our nuclear arsenal. And now this one is pushing this concept of short, small nukes aren't really nukes, right? They're trying to normalize this idea, which is the last administration we saw as well, which is to normalize a first strike is okay. And so this is what I'm saying is that the military industrial complex is always in control. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. And I have my views on Trump. And you know, for me, it's very simple for me. You know, I've got a lot of friends that are Trump supporters, and I've got a lot of friends who were Hillary supporters. You know, my 2 cents simply is, after a president is
It
elected,
doesn't, but see, this is
you
false
shouldn't be a
dichotomy.
supporter. You
They're
should
not.
be a. Mhm.
I'm going to fight back about that one because when you say, "Oh, well, I have friends that are Hillary supporters," that dichotomy of Hillary Trump supporters is a false impression because it's not Hillary supporters or Trump supporters. It's people who really want our Constitution to work and are pushing back to try to get our government back, or people who hate the way that Trump is actually subverting our Constitution, openly subverting it. And I'm not pushing back that there haven't been people doing that, but you know, it's kind of like when the United States uh, started using depleted uranium weapons, right? And so we changed that. That whole conversation about how did we get this slow slip into using depleted uranium weapons worldwide? Um, I think I think that's a bigger conversation. It's not the Trump supporters. I think the pushback. I think Trump is just an indication of how far off the mark we have gotten from even paying attention to our Constitution. Because the Trump administration, to me, symbolizes how far we have from not even paying attention to the Constitution. There is, for Paul Ryan not to be calling on impeachment hearings, to be calling on emolument clause hearings, and to just totally ignore the profit that this president makes off of the American people every single time he travels, every time he goes somewhere, to me, is unconscionable.
Right. Right.
And it's not the dichotomy between Hillary supporters and Trump supporters. I mean, it's almost like that flips out of your mouth, out of people's mouths. Like, you know, you say something against Trump, and people will say, "Well, Clinton, blah blah blah." Well, that actually worked really, really well for the propagandists to have that Pavlov dog response immediately trip off people's tongues. If you don't like Trump, then there must be something about you that likes Clinton.
Right. And so, looking at how we got here, right? We got here on this division, right? We got here on this idea of supporting a president. And this is what I'm saying, is that, you know, support is for a candidate. It's not for a politician, right? When someone's running for office, you support them because you feel that they will do a great job, or you think they'll do a better job than what the other will. But once they're in office, you shouldn't be a supporter. At that point, they're a politician. That should kick in our age-old distrust of leaders and politicians, which everybody's parents handed down to them, right? So once someone's elected, we as a nation should be together guiding that person, and if not chastising and watching that person, not still in, you know, blind support or blind hate. And so what I see from my friends on both sides is, I saw the blind support for Obama. I saw the blind, you know, support as the bombs dropped, the war started, the drones kicked off, the humor kept going, and uh, uh, now I see the same thing here. And so one thing I was thinking about this morning is how, when this was happening, you know, the Obama supporters were just cheering the entire time that he was doing similar things with big oil and with these banks. And I mean, he was a true Wall Street president, and he was supposed to be cleaning up Washington. And I think, honestly, I think he meant well, but he got into Washington and he realized what the game really was. And he has no, presidents alone have no power. And so my friends the whole time would tell me, you know, "Oh, Obama, he's taking on the Republicans. He's taking on the Republicans." And I'm sitting back watching. It's like, I don't see him taking on any Republicans on any common ground issues. I see him going along with them and going along with big oil. And so it's the same thing now with Trump. My friends on the Trump side, they're saying, "Oh, he's taking on the deep state. He's fighting the deep state." And I'm seeing the same thing. Like, no, I don't see that. I see him going along with the deep state. And I see him going along with the neocons and the Democrats. I don't see them fighting on any common ground issues in terms of poverty, war, colonization, the things that are really destroying this planet, sustainability, you know, a green focus. I don't see any presidents doing that. And, you know, I think the last president who did that, which is why the presidents don't do it, was JFK, right? And we know what happened to him. which is, I appreciate you sent me a great documentary last time we talked. It was called uh, "Everything Is a Rich Man's Joke" or "Everything's a Rich Man's Lie." That was a fantastic
Mm-hmm.
documentary, and I think that really walks people into understanding the real problem we have in this world. And it's not race, it's not religion, it's not political party. It's because America does not control their government, and they haven't probably in decades.
Mm-hmm. Well, since at least World War II, it's been secrecy, secrecy, hands off. You're not allowed to
Absolutely.
know. That's when the secret state really became. I mean, when Jimmy Carter was told, and I think that Jimmy Carter did make an effort to do it, but you saw what they didn't murder. They didn't murder Jimmy Carter outright. They politically murdered him so that he was ridiculed and demeaned after his presidency. He was not a respected president, but Jimmy Carter did make an attempt to push back. And you saw, I mean, as soon as he got out of the White House, they ripped. Imagine if we had left the solar panels on the White House and made America go solar, where we would be today. For real.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, and Trump just killed the solar and wind industry by imposing massive tariffs on them. So, you know, and took away the credits for the domestic producers of solar and solar and wind turbines.
yeah, and I'll agree.
So,
I'll agree with you on that one. That Trump is definitely more in your face than what we've ever seen in Washington.
mm-hmm,
Which I don't like to make jokes around it, but in reality, unfortunately, he actually mimics the extreme right and the extreme left in terms of representing them as a president, because the same extreme things that they do, living on Twitter, arguing, trolling, whatever that is, he's doing that, and they're eating it up. They love it to death. And so, in terms of representing extremities in our country, he definitely represents that. He may have a different belief with the extremity, but he represents that segment of Americans, that social media, trolling and arguing type of mentality. And so this is where this is why, like I say, more people who are moderates, who maybe are a bit more mature, who really are thinking about where is all of this going. If every single administration creates more wars, drops more bombs, pulls back more of the regulation, I mean, my goodness, what was it that they're doing? They're trying to end the defense sequester. So basically, they want to get to a point where it's not only an endless war, but they have endless funds for endless wars all over the planet. And no one talks about the real simple basic fact that we have all the money we need, right? I was listening to a great conversation this morning between Lee Camp and I forgot the other person, but what she was basically saying, and she said it in a very simple way. People fight over health care and they fight over constitutional rights and different things, but most of the fights come back to money. But we have a government that can print all the money they want anytime they want. And they will do it for tanks, they'll do it for bombs, they'll do it for drones, but they won't print a cent for the American people. And that's a common ground that people need to focus on. When you talk about universal health care, which absolutely is not what we have. We have for-profit health care written by insurance companies, for insurance companies. That's the only purpose. Why don't we have universal health care? Because they convince people on one side that, hey, you're going to have to pay for it. And they convince people on the other side, oh, it's going to be too expensive. And so they are okay with all the wars. They're okay with printing the money for the tanks. But when it comes to just making sure poor kids in the Appalachian Mountains and poor folks in the inner cities don't have health care, they're okay and they go along with it. But this is what I'm saying is that we have to stop letting ridiculous talking points and concepts from above, from on high, come down to us, and we need to start pushing up the solutions of what we require them to do as our government, because this is why we're effectively in World War III. I think you said that yesterday. We're effectively in World War III right now. It's a rumor of war. It's a quiet war, but we're at war on every single continent right now. And the only reason that is because Americans are busy fighting over shiny things and arguing with their neighbor over constitutional rights that everybody should have.
I don't think it's just think a lot of the American psyche is about, is this anxiety about the militarized police. I think there's a lot of anxiety in our country about the police murdering black people and pointing guns at people for no reason and acting as if, when we allow that to happen to one segment of the population, it reaches into every segment of the population. So we're seeing this slow slip into authoritarianism, which is why Trader Trump freaks us out so bad, because he straight up he has surrounded himself with military. And, there's a lot. I think if he does try any type of a military coup, people will stand up. I hope people would stand up instead of just accepting martial law. I would hope that people don't. I mean, the thing is, I said this when he got elected. I called him Pinochet 2.0. And I saw this coming from the very get, where they wanted to have what's called a controlled democracy. This is why he's not interested in figuring out exactly what did Russia do. How did they interfere in our elections in 2016? He's not interested in that because, frankly, he's not interested, and the GOP is not interested in democracy. They like having rigged elections. They've been doing it for a long time, openly, and no one's really challenged them. I mean, that's when I started getting involved in politics, when they openly stole the 2000 election. It was pretty obvious that they had a plan going on, and when George Bush said mission accomplished, he did not mean the Iraq War. He meant fascism is firmly in place. We've got the courts, we've got the House, we've got the Senate. Nobody's going to challenge us. We can do pretty much whatever we want. And they have. Pretty much.
And it will get worse. We're just on the cusp of it. And you said it to begin with in the beginning, which is there is no respect for the Constitution at all, in no way. And so in terms of, I can't speak to whether or not there can be some sort of a coup. I think that, there already was a coup. I think we lost our government a long time ago, and that's why we don't have any respect for the Constitution. And any powers that Trump deploys, they're powers that previous administrations gave him, right? They put these things in, not respecting the Constitution. The last administration built more prisons than they built elementary schools, right? So, building up with the police state, that's been something since George Bush, right?
Prison building came from. Look, the prison building budget did not come from the Obama administration. That was a poison pill put in, just like the nuclear arsenal and the 2007 Bush budget. That was projected out to start building in 2011 and 2012.
Right. So everything started with Bush, right?
And the Congress, this is the thing, it's not the administration. The Congress has really slipped under the radar for most Americans. We don't recognize how the Congress works because, like this, they split this budget requirement. Like now, they're playing around with the budget as if they can do a month, a continuing resolution every single month. But no one's talking about why are the Republicans refusing to produce a budget. The question is, why do we have this continuing resolution situation going on month after month after month? And the reason they want people to see the real budget. They don't want to have to tell the country that we're going to have to spend $2 or $3 trillion on the military, that we're not going to be spending money on children's health care, that we're cutting Medicaid and Medicare, that we're cutting services to the very, very poor so that these rich people can get their tax cuts. That's the reason we're doing continuing resolutions.
Right. Well, and because our government doesn't work for us, right? I mean, if our government,
it works for the industrial military complex.
Absolutely right. So if we're divided and like people talk about divide and conquer, there is no divide and conquer. We're already divided and we are already conquered. So our government doesn't have to do anything for us ever at all, and they don't. And so, and this is like I said, my perspective going back is they always talk a good game. They get people excited, but once they're in office, people continue to support it. And I don't give the Democrats an easy let off of that. I see them doing the same exact thing. They're taking money from the same people, the same military industrial complex. Wall Street runs our government. And until we get, I saw a quote this morning. Oh, goodness. And I know I'll mess it up, but it basically said something to the degree of, we are victims of our own tolerance. Until Americans are done tolerating.
The people in
Right.
article.
Yes. Yes. Right. And we are, and if it applies to us, we are victims of our own time until people stop arguing about what they can get this generation. They're going to totally wipe away anything possible for the next generation. We need people to step up and be a little more mature, think more about the children and what's coming next, and think less about what they can get now. And this is a critique on us, right? Because we let go of our government. We completely let them go. And so our biggest issue is if we don't actually come together in some sort of meaningful way on common ground, what's always been happening probably for the last 40 years, this looting of our country, it is gonna continue. And I don't I'm a show me person, right? I'm not don't tell me, show me. And I'm giving my Trump voting friends a chance, but the more every day goes on, the same way I gave my Obama voting friends a chance, but the more we go on, the more I see that our country is still being looted and they're in collusion with it, right? But we have to be honest with whatever party we are, whoever we voted for, we have to be honest with that. And we've got to get past this blind support and blind hate, or nothing will, come back to America. Our tax dollars are being spent all over the world, and not a dime of it's being spent in our own country.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of actually the interesting thing that has actually been really torn apart, because I heard some commentator talking about how Trump prides himself on being a disruptor. He likes to just disrupt everything. He's like the kind of person
Yeah.
who comes into a room and
Yes,
everyone's
he
having
is.
fun and he just overturns the table just to see what would happen, right?
Oh my gosh, is
But
he?
I mean, that was a pretty good analogy, because what happens is people pick sides with who you're going to side with. And I think that you're right in that regard, that we need to come together as Americans and say, I think that's what's really been lost. This is the big commonality of what's been lost, is that thing that we, as Americans, we're coming to this realization that most of us feel like Americans have integrity, Americans are good-hearted people, Americans believe in freedom of speech, we believe in a government that works for us. And as you laugh, that's exactly the come to Jesus moment. Most Americans are like, if you say these words out loud, they sound ridiculous.
Completely ridiculous. That is not us.
But that is at the heart of what most Americans actually believe about themselves.
Well, but this is what I'm
And it's at
saying.
the heart of
Mhm.
it's at the heart of the divisions among Americans, because people pick sides. Well, if you're with Trump, you can't. You're a racist, fascist, and you can. You believe in bigotry. And if you're with Clinton, then you believe in corruption and big mega government. You know what I mean? It's like these. It's a very, very easily, very well manipulated point of view, to where we actually have to see beyond those divisions. Because yes, Trump is a bigot, and he's a misogynist, and he is really completely out of control. And yes, Hillary Clinton has, I mean, look what they did to Bernie Sanders. They decimated Bernie Sanders. He was the only candidate who could have beat any Republican. Why did the Democrats choose to decimate his candidacy? Because they are Wall Street whores. Let's just put it to you straight up.
Yeah.
They don't want to rock the boat. They would have rather have Donald Trump than they would have had Bernie Sanders. They're much happier having Donald Trump as the foe.
If I'm allowed to enter a little conspiracy theory, you know what I think, Lonnie? I think that they did a simple calculation, and Hillary was promised to be the president, and she was the golden gal, but Trump actually did a great job. And I don't think he meant to. I think he did it on accident. I think he underestimated how decimated and ridiculous the Republican Party actually is. And he accidentally won because they realized what you just said, that he actually will divide people even further because he is phenomenal at walking in a room, throwing a grenade, and walking away. Everyone in the room fighting over the grenade. And this is what every single day, except for yesterday. Yesterday, we had a break from Trump television. All TV in the United States is Trump TV. He owns it. Anytime he sends out a tweet, every news station, they spend their entire day just following Trump, right? And so for the Super Bowl, for the Coliseum, we're allowed to have a break, but now we're back to the same thing. But I think they realize, I think it's a dollar figure. I think they realized they could make more money and divide the country further, keeping Democrats further on that side and pushing more Republicans further that side by having a social media troll type president who is great at just getting people to look the other way, making a comment on Twitter. In fact, if you ask me, I think the CIA owns his Twitter account, and I think they're actually they're consulting with him on what they can say to get people arguing and fighting about things that absolutely don't matter. One of the things I do appreciate that came out of that Twitter account, though, is, or I guess it didn't come out on the tweet because I don't follow this, but the whole Haiti is a S-hole country. I appreciate that because I think intellectuals need to take what's being done, if it's true, and move on it, right? So when he said that, everyone attacked him, and it was the instant back to the whole, the whole racist thing. My interest is not there. My interest isn't like mid-tier issues. The issue is he said the truth, and the truth is Haiti is that way. And why is Haiti that way? Because America and France wanted to be that way. It was the first colony that stepped away from this whole colonial ideology that we still hold today.
Step away. It had a revolution.
Well, right. Well, they stepped away. Right.
I mean, how dare the black people rise up against the colonialists?
Right. Well, and they paid.
The United States policy has been punishment ever since.
Right. They paid the maximum price, and now you got kids there who are actually, their parents are feeding them mud cookies and mud cakes. They bake them in the sun so their kids will have full tummies so they'll go to sleep at night. And the outrage shouldn't be the fact that the president said that. The outrage should be the fact that this actually exists. There was money handed at, what was it, $9 billion or something for Haiti relief. And the Haitians are saying, what $9 billion? It never made it here. Like, these are questions that people should be asking. And so this is why I'm saying we got to break down these narratives. The answer isn't attack, one candidate from a political party or one politician from a political party. The action has to be, there are people who are starving in this country. There are people, and it's not just Haiti, it's countries throughout South America, the Middle East, Yemen and Congo and throughout Africa. If there are so many S-hole countries around the world, the question is why? And the reality is the answer is almost always going to be because we are still playing colonial games. And until we stop playing colonial games, we won't have these S-hole countries won't go away. So people have to stop jumping in.
People were so angry, though, Gerard. I think the reason people were angry at Trump for making that comment is it showed a total lack of knowledge about why they are those types of countries. That's the reason, because he has I don't think so bluntly shows his total ignorance as to the politics of how it ended up. For him to say we want Norwegians here, and I'm going to also challenge you on this. Trump did not actually win honestly and legally. Just in one state in Wisconsin, the Republicans, through voter caging, eliminated 200,000 people in 2016 from voting.
Yep.
So if this is not legal, this has been the problem since 2000, frankly, when they went full bore on controlling the election. And there is a really good movie that people can watch on Prime by Greg Palast called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. It's a stolen election that wasn't.
Yes.
Because it wasn't stolen. It was caged. It was actually, they didn't have to steal it. They just prevent people from voting. And if you think that's not going to happen in 18, that's the outrage. It's what is going on.
Well, so in terms of the outrage, I didn't see people who were upset with him knowing why they were upset. They were upset because they're told to be upset with everything he does, which perpetuates everything.
I agree with you. So, they're not told to be upset. He's an offensive person. He offends most women that I know. He's a misogynistic, bigoted pig who looks at women as a piece of meat openly.
Yeah. You're not going to get any disagreement from me, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm defending the president in any way. Let's make that clear.
Gerard, I think you have to watch your language.
Yeah,
That's why I jump in on you, because we can't just let statements like that. People are being told what to think. I don't think so.
Yeah, so let me, I'll give you my 2 cents on that. Let me clarify. I'm not protecting, I'm not defending the president in any way, but what I am pointing out is the contradiction in a lot of people, right? So if the intent is to help starving people, we need to help starving people, not fight with the president. In terms of the things that he says, he is a rich prick, right? He is from a very wealthy family and a billionaire. And if you know anyone from very wealthy families who grew up that way, who are billionaires, the vast majority are jerks, right? And so that's what we have to expect. But I have to be honest with the contradiction there too, which is most Americans talk just like him, right? And at the Super Bowl last night, I guarantee you they were talking a lot worse than him. And so if we can't upgrade ourselves, we can't critique a president who speaks that same way. We need to do work from within. Like we've gotten rid of our morals, we've gotten rid of our ethics and even our maturity, and it makes us feel good to beat up a president who's like most Americans in a very scary way. But people don't like the mirror. When you look in the mirror, it's a scary, scary thing, to blame yourself. But if you can put somebody else down, then it makes you feel better. And so I'm not interested in putting the president down. I'm interested in people examining their own hearts, right? Do you want to help Haiti? Do you want to help the Congo? Do you want to help Yemen? Then the answer is stop feeding into the reverse hate, right? We saw the same hate with Obama, with all the monkey jokes and he's a Muslim and where's his birth certificate? It's the same reverse hate, and we got to get past that hate.
Started the where's the birth certificate? Trump did.
Right, exactly. Which is why I kind of agree. Someone mentioned that maybe they were grooming him for this a long time ago, and that could perhaps be true. As a 99%, we're not allowed to know any of the truth. We don't know anything that's true. So I don't really jump off on what any presidents or any politicians say, or even members of Congress. Right? I focus on what are the most important matters to the human race. We shouldn't be killing people. And we shouldn't be letting people starve in a time of great abundance when we can actually feed the entire world. In a time of great abundance when we actually can have universal health care. We need to focus on the things that are helping people and taking the lower priority issues like whether or not we like or dislike a political party or a president, put that aside and focus on what children need as opposed to what adults want or what makes them feel better. That's kind of my perspective.
Well, I think people are speaking up because we're so shocked to have such a poor representation as the United States in the White House.
Oh, yes, that's shocking.
And I think that people are not speaking out because we sound just like Trump. I think people are speaking out because we do not sound like Trump. I do not speak like Trump. I do not think like Trump.
You don't. I know you don't.
And I don't think most Americans do. The small populace that elected him after they eliminated millions of voters from voting through caging efforts, the small populace that did elect him does not represent America. It's like saying the neo-fascists represent America. No, they don't. David Duke does not represent America. The neo-Nazis do not represent. Most Americans are mortified by this man's behavior because of his he's openly breaking the Constitution by making a profit off of the United States people and foreign governments. And we have a Congress that is literally being co-opted. Paul Ryan is abdicating his responsibility to uphold the Constitution. Right. Because they want to move. This is the first time since Gingrich was around that they have had the ability to move their neoliberal agenda of, privatize everything, make no more social assistance, get rid of it. This is the kill the New Deal plan, and they are moving forward with it. They are killing public schools. They are killing public assistance. They are going to privatize the roads. They are expanding in ways that as Americans, we've all grown up with the New Deal.
Right.
Many of us are not used to even thinking about America without the New Deal. Well, that is in fact the Republican agenda, is to kill the New Deal.
Right. And something you touched on that I love, and that is the Constitution. Right. So a lot of my background comes from Being a libertarian, for a while I was a Democrat. For a minute, I thought about being a Republican, but once I realized they were both lying, I stepped over and became a libertarian. So, in terms of the Constitution, I remember civics class, Lonnie, and I have never seen the Constitution enacted ever since I was born. I'm 44 years old, and I've yet to see a constitutional representation by any presidential administration. The things that we are not allowed to do. We are not a free country because the Democrats and Republicans take turns in which constitutional rights to remove because they're not attached to their lifestyle. So if we can get back to the rule of law, the law of the land, which is the Constitution, it will resolve a lot of issues. It'll basically collapse Washington if we actually did that. But I'll go back to a good saying by a great comedian philosopher, George Carlin. He said, and he talks, and I'm a Christian, so I'll let you know right away. He said, but he said Christianity. He said that's a wonderful idea. When are you actually going to start that? When are you actually going to live what it talks about, right? And so I'll look at that from a constitutional perspective in terms of Republican or Democrat. To me, they're in the same bucket. The Constitution is a wonderful document. When will we ever get a Democrat or a Republican that showed any respect for any of it?
Well, I think that they do actually follow it according to very strict rules. It's kind of like Kai Hushka was talking about. The biggest betrayal that we had in our Constitution was done by our forefathers. They came to America. They could have set up our Constitution in a different way, but what they did was they mimicked almost entirely British law, which gives a lot of leeway to, it basically gives corporations more authority over individual rights.
Absolutely.
So what we've seen in our country is about every 60 or 70 years, the populace gets so oppressed, we bob our head up and demand a little bit of liberty, and then the oligarchs and the people running the corporations push us back under.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's kind of where we're at, but that is our reality. I mean,
we need a reboot.
Go ahead.
No, as I said, I'm with you. We need a reboot.
Yeah, so you believe in the collapse of it all. See, I'm the kind of person that I want us to move it back on a slow ebb. Like, we need to sort of take it over. I think we're headed for a major collapse, but I don't think a collapse will be healthy for anyone.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree with you. And let me clarify. I'm not a collapser. I don't want it to collapse. But you get to a certain point where, see, tomorrow everything could be different if we wanted it to be, right? We are the 99%. We actually run this nation. The government is us. And if 99% of people actually tomorrow just went to sleep and woke up and said, okay, you know what, we're going to focus on the Constitution, or we're going to focus on human rights, or, these 4 or 5 priority issues. Don't murder people for money, right? If we did that, we could change everything tomorrow without anybody getting hurt, right? But the reality is we wait till that pain comes. And so in terms of a collapse, there was an old saying that used to go around. They said, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? And I don't hate the Democrats and the Republicans. I'm not hating the players or the politicians in there. I hate the game. I understand that it's the system that's sick. It's not the Republicans or the Democrats, but it's that they operate in a system that requires they stay corrupt. And so I don't think either can change anything significant, because it's the system that actually needs to get fixed and go back to being a constitutional government. And in terms of voting, like you said, what is it, Jimmy Carter? Jimmy Carter, who said, we no longer have a functioning democracy. And that wasn't a Republican or Democrat statement. It was the fact that our nation is broken. And the only way to fix it is if we can either, one, all come together tomorrow and say, you know what, we've had it, we're not doing this anymore. Or we have some sort of controlled, slow collapse. I mean, no one wants to see a Great Depression again. No one wants to see the collapse of the dollar, but we're heading that direction. But if we can't slowly bring down the corporations that run our government, then we are going to head to some sort of a collapse that's really going to hurt. Not because a collapse is a sign of a broken system, but our system was actually designed this way. We were always
I
designed.
don't think we have much choice. I think we're
Yeah.
going to see the environment collapse. I was thinking about Flint, Michigan, right? How they didn't have water. It took them over 2 years to really start correcting it, right?
Right.
And there's some things, this is indicative, though, of every single state. That Governor Schneider, he's saying he wants to increase the lead and copper rule to lower the levels of lead. But what it's going to require is a massive financial investment. It's going to take them to replace all their service lines. It will take 20 years. We built an infrastructure in the 30s and 40s that really have not been upgraded. And that goes along every single thing, which is why we have high levels of contamination everywhere. We had a system whose groundwork was started in the 40s and 50s through the New Deal. And the Republicans really essentially have pushed back on the New Deal for so long. They have always hated it. They don't want to have to pay for it. So we have basically an infrastructure that is in massive disrepair that could heal a lot of issues, but it gets back to it'll take away from the profits.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the reason that the United States killed Hugo Chavez and gave him cancer was because he demanded that the oil companies pay his country 2% of their profits, which they had been promising to pay for decades.
Right.
That was outrageous to them. So this is the interesting thing. I think one of the good things about Trump's outrageousness is that he's actually showing us how out of control the government really is.
Yes.
His statements really do show us his audacity to just be bold. He doesn't care who knows what.
He doesn't.
He's just gonna, because he knows he has control, and no matter what we do, nobody's gonna stop him.
Yeah.
Period.
But,
I mean, he's pretty confident that he's not even going to get, this whole thing with Mueller. I don't think he's going to get indicted at all. I think they might make him step down, but I don't even know if they'll do that because the corruption is, he's not any. The only problem is a lot of his people did lie about their connections with Russia, and that's when you get into this. It's very territorial. You can't. If they would have just done simple money laundering, I don't know if it would have been as big of an offense. But we'll see how they feel like it plays out. I don't know.
Yeah, and leading into release the memo and all of that stuff. So I smile when I hear stuff like that because as long as I've been alive in this country, Lonnie, I have not seen the ruling elites go to prison. So I know everyone talks about how Trump is going to get Hillary and he's going to get all these people and put them in prison and fight the deep state. I don't ever see that happening. I don't think our ruling elites ever will pay that price.
Are they actually still saying that he's going to get Hillary? Do they really?
Oh yeah. Oh, big time. Big. But like I said, to me, it's the same thing. I listen to my Obama friends, oh, he's fighting the Republicans. They won't let him do anything. He's taking them on. And I'm just sitting here like, that's not from where I'm sitting, but that's what they're saying with Trump. Oh, he's fighting them and he's, and it's like the State of the Union speech, which I recommend everybody listen to. It was actually a very well produced speech. I am a skeptic. And so I've never seen presidents do these things. And so I don't think these things are going to happen. But it sounded great. It sounded fantastic. But
like a warmonger to me.
Well, yeah, at the end.
Made my hair stand up.
Yeah, well, at the end, he kissed the ring.
He is frightening. He's telling us exactly what he plans on doing. He is a frightening human being, in my view.
Yeah, well, so where I'm going with that is that, so when a president says something, if we were a united population, we would say, you know what, in terms of, I guess he had 4 points for immigration reform. And the first one was something like making a path for 1.3 million immigrants to become citizens. And yeah. And so if we hear that and we like that, if we were united, we could force that to happen, right? One thing I do agree with, my Trump friends will say, is that he is a showman. And being a narcissistic showman, he actually will do anything that he thinks people will cheer in mass. Like he wants to be popular. He wants the approval of masses of people. And if people actually said, you know what, you said that, and we're going to hold you to task on that. If people focused more on policies than his personality or his identity, we actually could force some of those things to occur. But of course, at the end, I was, and so let me clarify. He said a bunch of things I thought were interesting, right? He talked about reform of the prison system. We were talking about the Constitution. The scary thing for me is that no one even talks about our current modern slavery system in the Democrats or the Republicans, except for Ron Paul, who left, and now his son Rand Paul. Every now and then he'll choke it up, and he believes in reform of the prison system. But this is modern slavery, and the Democrats and
I
Republicans,
disagree with you.
they
I
don't.
think there's lots of
Mhm.
discussion about it.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
the
So let's
reality is,
let's.
Trump is
Mhm.
not going to redo the prison system.
No,
In
I don't
fact,
think he is, because Obama
he will.
didn't.
That's Obama. Obama, before he left, signed a signing statement to stop the prisons for profit, to put a halt on that, literally. And that was one of the first regulations he overturned.
Yeah.
So the
So
prisons for profit are back in order.
right. So if we were a constitutional respecting government, the modern slavery, the modern incarceration rates would be almost nothing, right? So if we had a president there who respected the Constitution, like I get that people say, well, the law changes slowly, and that is true. And the law, it's how the system is designed. However, when you have laws that are grossly unconstitutional, and you've got children in prison and nonviolent drug offenders make up the vast majority of the inmates in prison. When you have the vast majority of people in prison for an unconstitutional law, that's not a law that should change slowly. That's a law that has to be undone overnight because it's a mass injustice. And so, when I talk about, my interests are human rights and human life. When you look at putting people in cages smaller than what you put a lion or a tiger in, it's completely unacceptable, especially the fact that they're children. And most of them got in trouble with these unconstitutional laws before they even had frontal lobes, Lonnie, right? So
Can I
before they
jump
were
in there?
26, yeah, well, before they were, you don't get a frontal lobe till you're 26. So you actually don't even have a human brain until you're actually 26. And if we're putting people in prison before holding them accountable to human laws that are unconstitutional before they even have a human brain, we're broken. But those things aren't things that need to change slow. Those things that got to get deleted now. So no, I don't think Trump will do it. Let's clarify. I think he was talking, but he says these things. And if we were a united population, not on shiny things, but on human rights positions and constitutional positions, we would be forcing that to occur immediately.
Look, it goes to the heart. Fundamentally, it goes to the racist heart of this country. Because most of the people in prison are black people and brown people. Most of the prison population are not white Americans. And we see this play out again and again and again. Last week, the father of 3 girls who had been molested by that gymnastics teacher broke out of court and had tried to attack the molester in court because he was going to show that he was going to get this guy. Do you know that that man had been black? What would have happened to him? He probably would have gotten shot. So that is what's not being spoken about. Trump talks about, we're going to redo the prison system. That puts fear of God in me because he plans on making it worse. He plans on institutionalizing what makes a person a prisoner or not. I mean, I do not think that thinking he has in mind. He is at heart a racist bigot. He used to put on his applications for people in Trump Tower a C for colored, and those people would not get approved. So we're talking about a man who is a white supremacist talking about making things equal in this country is not going to happen. For my view, we just have to either wait it out till we get him out of office, because the damage he's doing is immense to the American psyche, because he's allowing every misogynist, every batterer, every racist, every bigot full authority to go out, and this is what makes it really frightening, with the police pulling out their guns and just aiming a weapon at a black person because they want to. They don't get, let's just be really clear, this is at the heart of what's at the whole disconnect between Congress
Yeah.
people is Congress wants to pretend like when Obama got elected, people wanted to pretend like we moved on. And as we saw, we didn't move on. The thing that Trader Trump did was question his citizenship. Man, he
Yeah.
questioned his citizenship. So that is who America elected, and we allowed him to get elected. Why? Because we allowed the caging of black people and of brown people to happen, and the Democrats are twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing about it.
Well, yeah. So I have to jump in there. And so, yeah, and I know this is on the radio, so people can't see, but being what people like to refer to as an African American and a male and bald headed, I've already had the guns pulled on me, right? I've had guns pulled on me by police twice. And no,
Right.
I wasn't breaking any laws. I was just young growing up here in Prince George's County, Maryland, where the police were vastly out of control. But the point I'm going to make there is that a lot of the friends that I have who did vote for Trump, they didn't vote for Trump because they didn't like black people. They voted for Trump because they didn't like the establishment and they didn't want Hillary. And so when we look at why are all of these black people in prison, it's because Bill Clinton and the crime bill and the complicity
True.
from the Democrats with that. So we have to look at the truth of that. But where we are today, I think we're still in a great position. And so there was Kaepernick, right? So there was Kaepernick in the NFL, which I'm sure everyone watched the NFL last night. They didn't protest it, but he took a knee. And this is another thing that Trump said that people, I think they need to key on. So Trump was against that. He thought that was being un-American. What I appreciated is started a discussion around who is affected worse by police brutality. By percentages, it was African American people, minorities. However, by vast amounts of numbers, the interactions with police where a gun is fired, they were white males. And so the reason I think that we're not getting anywhere is because people, they cover up those statistics, right? They don't want to talk about we have a problem with the police state. And it is true that prisons are full of minorities, but that's not the problem. The problem is people are in prison that shouldn't be, and it doesn't matter what their race are. The problem is we have police running around with lethal weapons who are supposed to be protecting and serving, and we know we can give them non-lethal weapons. The problem is they're being sent into neighborhoods by Democrats and Republicans' laws, the politicians' laws, right? Because the police don't write their own laws. And they're going into places where children live and they're waging war for laws that are unconstitutional. Those are our problems. Our problems, like I said, they're not parties, they're not personalities. They're at the core of our country. We don't respect the Constitution and we have to speak up for each other. So being a black man, I often speak up for the white kids a lot because it's important. And I had my white friends, they actually speak up for black kids a lot. And I think that's how we get somewhere is we get out of this tribalism where I got to protect my own or what I think is my own, and we got to protect each other.
Okay, you know what? That's a perfect ending. We have about 10 seconds. Thank you for Gerard for joining us.
Thank you so
And
much,
I hope
Lonnie.
you'll come back.
It's always a
We got to
pleasure. I
put it
love
on
talking to you.
Put your courage feet on, you guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.